This is Jeffrey DeShawn, the Inspired Muse, coming to you live with a Muse moment today. And the theme today is life still on pause? It's okay. Watch, wait, and pray. I wanted to share this talk and reflections today because as a coach and just in my own living, in this moment, we continue to come across, many of our searchers continue to navigate and struggle with, quite frankly, honestly, the continuing sort of life pause moment. And not just, as a result of COVID-19 and the quarantine specifically, but then all of the sort of ramifications of things that ended, things that changed, the continuing ever sort of false promise that things somehow will come back and go back to being the same. And in this space of sort of continual start, stop, pause, start, stop, pause, start, stop, pause, I find in my coaching and in my own living, it can be quite maddening. And I have lots of conversations with coaching clients and friends and family and colleagues about what to do in these moments of pause. And I myself, over particularly the last year of quarantine, being someone who was quarantined primarily with myself and my animals, I've had a chance to do a lot of reflection, right? A lot of reflection. And some of that reflection, has heavily drawn me back in, to internal reflection and spiritual reflection. And for me, in many ways, really strengthened and deepened my spiritual practice and connection. And for me, my connection to God, my creator, my source. And in that, as a coach, an advisor, and someone who sort of, really also advises and encourages and inspires. My company is Inspired Muse Coaching and Management for the reason I call myself the Inspired Muse, intentionally tries to inspire others, and often through both organizational development, leadership, problem solving, civic work, but also from a root cause analysis place of inspiring the spirit. Because I think that ultimately, when I find ourselves in personal crisis or collective crisis of culture and consciousness, it is often brought about by a disconnect or a misalignment in spirit, and particularly when we think about the alignment of spirit, head, and heart. And so I come to this conversation today differently than some of my other Muse moments, because this conversation, particularly being on a Sunday, is coming from an inspired place, really connected to spirit, and for me, connected to faith. And my faith being my faith framework being founded in the faith tool of the Bible, the Christ story in Christianity. And for me, that is an opener, an opportunity. So I invite you, if you're not of someone who is of faith, of spiritual faith, or rooted in Bible or Christianity, that's okay. Because this is also, these frameworks and tools for me from Bible and Christianity and living are tools for how we can help us navigate this life experience. And so whatever your faith, or if you don't refer to it as faith or spiritual framework, it's a desire in my work to really help folks connect with their inspiration. And I find that it's often internally with spirit and faith, and back to a source place that's beyond sort of many of the transactional parts of our life and our living. And so today I wanted to talk about still on pause. It's okay. And a lot of people are like, no, it's not okay. I'm ready to get back out into the world. I'm ready to travel. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for my employer to decide what they gonna do so I can make decisions, that. And I say to people, interesting, do you hear yourself? Have you heard yourself? Do you hear yourself? Have you heard yourself? Because, and a lot of that is externally focused. When I find folks talking about, I'm ready to get back out there, all of it often is very externally focused and very rarely internally focused to ourselves. what is actually necessary and needed for our life and living. And I find that in my own living, when I have rushed beyond my pause moment, like rushed myself out of the pause moment back into life and living, primarily because I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses, with the Oneses, with all the folks, right? That what am I rushing back out to? Why am I rushing to do a particular thing? Why, and what, right? And so I find that it's important to actually, I've talked about this before, embrace the power of the pause, to really embrace the power of the pause. And because there is so much power in the pause. So I'm going to reference some scriptures today, which is a little different, and why I mentioned sort of the faith framework. I'm going to reference some scripture as tool and guide, and scripture for me is an anchor, tool, and guide, as many text and tools are, but it is an anchor for me. So I'm going to reference some scriptures, and for those folks on Instagram, a couple of those scriptures I'm going to reference is Luke chapter 5, verse 36 through 39. Luke 5, 36 through 39, Luke 6, 43, Genesis chapter 1, 24 through 27, Genesis 1, 24 through 27, and Philippians 4, 6. All right, so those are some scriptures I'm going to reference. Luke 5, 36 to 39, Luke 6, chapter 6, verse 43, Genesis chapter 1, verse 24 through 27, and Philippians 4, 6. All right. Okay. So let's talk about why it's okay. Life, and if your life and living, you feel like it's still on pause, and particularly if right now it's like, so many people, it's like, I am at my wit's end. What do I do? And people say, Jeffrey DeShawn, what are you talking about? How can you make this moment of life being on pause beneficial? How can you make it more than what it is? Well, we're going to talk about that. So I want to start off by talking about what is a pause. When we think about what a pause means, what it means to pause. A couple of dictionary references is to interrupt action or speech briefly, right? To interrupt action or speech briefly. To interrupt, and we're interrupting what? An action, movement, right? Or a sharing, verbal speech, or doing, right? Visual doing. It's also a temporary stop, right? It's a temporary stop. The intention of a pause is for it to be what? Temporary, right? Or the reference of to give someone pause, right? So you can gift the pause, maybe through something you said or something you did that made someone pause, take a moment to momentarily interrupt their action or their speech, right? To get clarity, understanding, what have you, to ask a question, to temporarily stop somebody from what they're doing, for what reason or purpose, could be any, but right. So we pause intentionally often, and sometimes things in our life, like COVID-19, come and force a pause. And particularly in these moments when a pause is forced upon us, this is what I'm talking about. I want to really talk about, what do we do? How do we take this forced upon pause moment and turn it into something else other than the put upon me, the put upon me, I am powerless victim mindset of, COVID is here. I'm limited from travel. I'm limited from doing the things that I normally do, right? That keep me in action, right? Or that keep me talking. People know I'm a talker, right? But I've been appreciating the power of the pause to be still, even in my speech, in my thinking, to become intentional. And so we'll talk a bit about why we get into pause moments, and then how can we turn them into intentional moments, for powering us up, for preparing for when play is pressed again. So some of the characteristics of a pause, right? We understand what a pause is. Now sort of define it's a interruption, an action and speech and play and doing, a temporary stop. So ultimately, the key part of that is a pause is not a permanent state of being. It is temporary. It is temporary. rare read. And here's the thing. While a set of circumstances may have brought about a pause, like COVID-19, like economic transition, job closures, laying off, children being home from school, all those kinds of things, the pause itself is still temporary, because our complete life and living is not solely subject to those conditions and those circumstances. And this is the thing about sort of the important intentionality of sort of flipping the pause from being something put upon us to something that I can leverage to prepare myself for when I, or, my employer or finances decide to press play again, is that the condition of the circumstance is not our whole selves and our living, but we often make it because of the impact, right, of the change and transition of the crisis, or the challenge of the moment. But it is temporary, and it's temporary because we're going to talk about this. You hold the power in your life and living. So it's temporary until you decide, until another factor or resource comes and you decide. But ultimately, whether it's because you got money, you got a new job, the kids could go back to school safely, you got vaccinated, you decide. So because you decide, the pause instantly becomes something that's not put upon you, something that's not victim, right? But something now that is in my control. And in many ways, I said earlier, when the quarantine started early last year, about a year ago, I did a post about it. Made me reflect on, can you be content with what you have created? When we've been called into our homes, into our nuclear families, most of us are our family. Those who we consider family are both friends, biological, family, non-biological, but our family, right? Brought into our sort of nucleus family, those who we engage with most and rely upon. And of our homes, our partners, our spouses, our boyfriends, our girlfriends, our children, those who are with us most. It's like, so can you be content with this? If you weren't able to run out to work, run out to the gym, run out to all the external things, could you be content with what you have created? And so part of that is me thinking, like, it's temporary. It's temporary because, again, you get to decide. So pause is not a permanent state of being. It is temporary. Other interesting thing about the pause, if we use the analogy of video or audio recording devices, iPad, phone, computer. My computer was causing me trouble earlier. Microsoft, no thank you. The device is still connected to power. When you press pause, the device is still connected to power. When the pause was put upon you in your life through your employer, through COVID, through your child's school, through your own educational institution. Yes, the pause is here, but the reality is what? You are still powered up. You are still living. And in this special moment where many have passed on and have died that are no longer with us, you still have breath. You are powered up. And so it is a temporary state of being because you are still powered up. You are still living, though the conditions and circumstances may have changed. The other interesting characteristic about a pause is that when you press pause, particularly I think about visual, it's still on the screen, right? You press pause and I was still there, right? For those who are watching, who can see, I was still there. And so still on the screen, you are still the device, right? If you think back to the audio visual device, the CD is still, the tape is still in deck. The record is still on the player. The disc is still in the chamber. You're still on screen. And the big takeaway from that, there was a power up moment for me and sort of reflecting on us and praying for this talk was, because you are still on screen, you are still on deck, the disc is still in the chamber, you are one touch away from being heard and or seen. This is the moment I say, people, don't give up. Don't give up. There are a lot of people with dreams and ideas about businesses. I was slated to go back to school. I was slated to start my business. I was slated to go travel across the world for the first time. I was slated. Well, you hold the power. Yes, you may not, the conditions and circumstances external to you may have created the pause, but again, you hold the power. And you are one touch away from being heard. You are one touch away from being able to press play and being able to step forward into the present version, the forward version, because we're going to talk about, you can't look behind, right? Because you press pause. Now you can't go, you're not going back to here unless you rewind. Now that's a whole nother conversation. We're not going to talk about rewinding today. We're not going to talk about rewinding because that's often the reason some of us end up in a pause loop, because we like to rewind too much. And we're going to talk a little about that from a scripture reference. But you are one touch away from being heard and seen. So that's part of the power of the pause. It's not a permanent state of being. It's temporary. The device is still connected to power. You are still powered up and living. You are still with breath and present in consciousness. The presentation is still on the screen. The CD is still in the deck. The disc is still in the chamber. The game is still loaded. You still have the song, the video, the file on your device, and therefore it is one touch away from being accessed. You are one touch away from whatever your power play is. All right. So let's talk. I want to talk a bit about why might we press? Why do we press pause? And using that analogy of the device, audio, visual again, why might we press pause? Or if we're being intentional about pauses in our life, why might we take a pause from anything? Right? Might we take a pause from exercising? Why might we take a pause from a club or group? Why might we take a pause from a relationship? Why might we take a sabbatical, a pause from a job? Why might we reduce our hours from a part-time job or, an hourly job? Why might we take a pause? Well, oftentimes, if we continue to use the device, audio-visual analogy, there's a glitch or distortion in the sound or the visual. There's a glitch or distortion in the sound or the visual. We become distracted, right? Your child might run through the room butt naked. The FedEx man might ring the doorbell. Your phone might ring. Mama might call. Boss might call, right? A pipe might burst. The sky might fall, right? We become distracted or there's a glitch or distortion in the sound or visual. Often, other times we might press pause is because we run out of time, right? We had a set defined amount of time that we had set or was set because of a multitude of factors, and we've run out of time to play out, to continue to watch, listen to what it was we were watching and listening to, run out of time. Or, again, going from positive, it's time to do something else. We had scheduled this much time, so now I have to go do something else. Now it is time for me to start something else. So I have to pause because I'm intention to come back. I'm pausing from listening, watching, doing this because now it is time for me to go do something else. Or sometimes we become unsure if we desire to continue. There are many times I'm watching something. I'm not big on a lot of the horror movies and all the spooky and booky. And so there'd be something I start to watch and it's like, I don't know if I want to watch that. But I'm curious, maybe I'm not certain. So I press pause. I don't want to have to start it from the beginning again, especially if I'm unsure, if I want to finish it. So I press pause. Sometimes there are things in our life, we start, I've had volunteer involvements with a new organization or a new setting. And it's like, I want to explore this. And you get into it. He's like, I'm not certain this is an alignment of my talents and gifts or best use of my time. And I'm not certain, so I might not quit. Right? It might not stop, but I might press pause. Well, I'm not available for a while. I'm going to figure it out or, I'm going to figure it out. And if I decide, yes, I'm going to come back. So we might be uncertain, right? When we're uncertain and we're not clear on what to do. And coaching, I always say, if you're uncertain, then just take a pause before you jump and make an action, right? Because sometimes we feel pressed and again, keeping up with the Joneses and with all of the folks in the Oaks and spokes. We feel we might be unsure. We feel like we got to rush out to do something. Well, no, take the pause. Take the pause. Sometimes we press pause because we want to take notes, right? Something hit us, right? Or we've had an experience that we want to reflect on, right? So we might pause from a relationship. I know folks and friends who've been dating people. It's like, it's good, but there's something, I'm not sure. It's good, but I'm at the place where I know if I want to continue to date somebody beyond a year or 2 years, I want it to, have some clarity where it's going. So I'm just going to say, hey, let's take a pause. Maybe let's take a month or two off and not date for a while. I've had some friends that, been dating, and that's what they, decided to do during COVID, because I'm not certain we didn't know each other enough to really be sort of quarantined like that or depend on each other like that. So let's take a pause in this moment. And then hopefully during that pause, we could take some notes, stop. We're going to watch, wait. We're going to talk about this: watch, wait, grow, and pray. You might react to some things. You might need to share some information, get some clarity, comment, right? Reflect within yourself. But sometimes we have to take a pause so we can actually take some notes, react, reflect, comment. And the important thing about reflecting is to reflect on what has been heard and or seen thus far, right? So when we step out of the sort of COVID fear framework around this sort of concept of a pause in this moment, and we begin to, as I've talked about, to see it not as something put upon us, but as a power up opportunity. Accepting clear-eyed and real, as one of my leadership mentors says, clear-eyed and real, right? Looking at ourselves in the mirror, clear-eyed and real, not what we want to see, not what we put the show on for other people to see, but clear-eyed and real. What's not, we look at ourselves clear-eyed and real and take the opportunity, right, to get to the watch, wait, and grow. We're going to talk about that. There's an opportunity there. And there's an opportunity to reflect on ourselves. There's an opportunity to take the space and the time to be with ourselves. And I know it's hard. People with children, people with high, maintenance household because of other people, their spouses, their this and that, their jobs. But because you have been forced to reduce time and access to something else, there's some time and access given back to you. Now, what you reallocated that time and access to is the question. But if you've had to stop something you were doing, you've given yourself back some time. Now, some of us were overdoing beyond the space and bandwidth we already had. So in actuality, we just sort of leveled, set back to where we should have been. But in that, there's the opportunity to even further be intentional about making sure that you are carving out time to take this moment, because you have a reduced footprint, to be with yourself, to gain knowledge and understanding about yourself. And the power of that, I think, in our life is that, it's this unique moment because of COVID, right? These trifecta of things, not just one thing, but you got employment, you got education, you got all the sectors, health, all industry, because you couldn't even get to the dentist months and months out, a regular doctor's appointment because of the health factors, right? So all these trifectas of things have allowed us to really be able to, in the midst of our life show, and it rarely happens like this unless we really bump up against a major personal crisis and collapse, which COVID has brought about for many, right? But to take, in the midst of our life show, to take a pause, look to the right or the left, look to the front or the back, and behind us, to see where we are, clear-eyed and real, right? Clear-eyed and real, to look and see where we are. And that is sort of the power, of the pause. And that's really sort of when I start to talk about and think about sort of the watching, I say, it's okay, just watch, wait, and pray. Well, that's where we start to watch ourselves. If we take the opportunity to be with ourselves, be with our family, those who daily contribute to us, those who are part of our sustainment, to really step back and watch, right? Almost coming up out of yourself and reflecting on your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions, your children, what's needed to actually create the environment for life and living that you desire. Well, take this opportunity for those who continue to have a reduced footprint, who's not being sort of forced back out, and those who have been able to be blessed to make a decision. So, okay, I'm going to be intentional about what we add back. The kids are going to go to school 2 days a week, but they're still going to stay home just in case. As you make those decisions, be intentional about watching, not just externally other people and other things, but watching yourself. How are you moving in this moment? How are you feeling in this moment? How are you reacting in this moment? And it's an opportunity to really examine ourselves and explore, for those of us who may have found ourselves like, oh, this is a COVID brought about, stimulated pause. But I've been some pause moments before because of economics, because of loss of job or relationship transition. So okay, what are some patterns here? This may have come about a different way, but what are some patterns in these pauses? Or just to really, get to that grow place, right? So we watch to discover and become clear about one of the things is what has remained. Because in the pause, right, particularly in this moment with COVID, there's a lot that has been lost. There's an access, activity, sadly, loved ones, right? Friends, family, from day to day to day. And so it's important oftentimes in these moments, especially when there's the rush to keep up, the fear that we're going to get behind, we end up playing off of an old tape, right? So we've only gotten so far on this recording, but we paused, but there's still activity going on, but we don't know what is ahead. So what often happens is we pull from old tapes. We start pulling from the vault, because sometimes, particularly, in new devices, right, you can pause and get back to the same spot in different ways, technology, right? So we might, let me go pull up in another window and look at something else. Let me go pull back something else, right? Let me go put in another disc in another device and listen to that, right? So we may find ourselves sometimes playing off of old tapes, and we can do that and get stuck in another cycle because we actually haven't examined what remains, what is truly present, honestly, clear-eyed and real in this moment. What remains, what truly remains, not what was, but what is truly present, what remains. And then as we continue to not just watch others and external things, but really examine ourselves, how are we reacting, responding to what remains? What have we lost? Who have we lost? What have we lost because we have lost people, right? People aren't just bodies, right? Although sometimes this world thinks is that it's just all about the bodies. No, it is the spirit, the soul. It is the presence, the energy that people bring to us, the production, professional, right? The knowledge, the expertise. What have we lost? So then, therefore, what needs to be recreated? What needs to be new access to developed? That's why we watch. Because if we don't take the power of the pause and then step back and watch ourselves, watch our existence, we just end up running cycle after cycle, old tape after old tape, misstep after misstep. And we wonder, why can't I get ahead? Why can't this work? Well, oftentimes it's because we haven't taken the opportunity to embrace the pause, watch, wait, grow, and pray. All right. So in the waiting, which can be the hardest, the waiting can be the hardest. The waiting truly can be the hardest. But why do we accept the wait? Why should we accept the wait and embrace the wait? Well, this goes back to some of the reasons why we press pause in the first place, or some of the reasons why a pause might have happened. COVID was a glitch or distortion in our health system, in our biological system. This new presence of COVID-19 SARS was a glitch and distortion that has caused major loss and lack, right? So that being one of the reasons that has brought about this sort of collective pause. And I turn those items, those reasons that I referenced before, why we glitch or distortion, distraction, time, time to do something else, uncertainty, time to reflect, into reflection questions. And so while we're waiting to get to the growth moment, you might ask yourself, what glitch or distortion have you observed in your life and living? And might absorb it too in your life and living in this moment. What cycles might you be repeating, right? What has happened outside of COVID? What has happened to bring about a change internally to you, externally to you? What glitch or distortion have you observed in your life and living? Clear out and real, what has happened? Who and or what has become a distraction for you? Right? In this moment, we're actually during this moment of sort of reduced footprint and more disruption and chaos, focus is needed more and more. If you're going to go take steps forward and not get stuck in a cycle or step back, focus is required. My father reminds me all the time, focus. Stay focused, Jeff. Stay focused. Focus is required. So who and or what might be a distraction for you in this moment? All right? Because that can cause the pause, or the start, right? Distractions. right? There's a lot of politics as distraction. I say the previous president was a big old distraction. The politics of the parties often are big old distractions, right? So who and or what is a distraction for you? Sometimes you have a team member in your professional environment that's a big old distraction, right? So what is distracting you from what you need to be focused on so that you can continue to observe yourself so you can get to growth? What is it time to let go of? Sometimes the pause comes because, okay, that's played out enough. I've watched movies, especially, romantic comedies. I love a good comedy. And it's like you get so through the movie, you already know the storyline, especially now. I love me some Netflix. Hey, Netflix, I'm here. I love Netflix. But, you can watch a whole premiere on Netflix and feel like you watched the whole movie. And so then I'll get halfway into the movie. I'm like, I know how this gonna end. Okay, pause. Because I might want to come back to it, later on, something to do, filling time, space. Or somebody might say something that you watched that? Oh, I missed that part. Oh, okay, now I need to go back and watch it, right? So, but sometimes it's just time to let go of something. Like, okay, enough of that. But then other times, what is it time to begin to do that you have not done? This is, again, the power of the pause, right? We look so much focus on what we've lost, right? And that's so important when we've lost loved ones, right? We cannot just discard. I've had a hard time in this past year because I just felt like collectively, we know when you have lack of leadership, human-centered, soul-centered, spirit-centered leadership, it is hard, right, to actually muster the collective spirit to focus on the people and the spirits that have been lost, right? And that has bothered me. But outside of that, when we look at, people, well, we must honor their life and living. What time is it? What is it time to begin anew? Sometimes actually when we've lost someone, I've been in this place, having lost a loved one, and it taken really long time to restart again, right? Or recognize what that loved one, the space that they feel, the tools, gifts, and talents that they brought, and not realizing what you were missing in your living sustainment formula. So what might you be needing to begin again, to do yourself or to search out support for? And this is a moment, even with myself, I've had to check as somebody who, trained in social work. I do coaching, there are times when I need a clinician, I need a counselor, I need a coach, right? So what is it time for me to do new, right? Or it might be something you've done before and it has worked for you. What is it time for you to do again? But what do you need to be doing? And then ask yourself, what are you uncertain about? Because sometimes we get stuck in the pause because we're uncertain. We are uncertain. We're unsure of the moment. We're unsure of the atmosphere. We're unsure of our kids' school. I'm going to let them stay home. We're going to do this digital thing because I'm not really sure. I'm going to choose and sign up early to stay home for the next year and work from home, never go back, because I'm not sure what the company's going to do. And I don't necessarily trust that they're going to do right by me, right? Those kinds of things. So what are you uncertain about? And then, we take pause to reflect. To reflect on all this information, right? What was the glitch and distortion? What happened? How did it actually impact us? Some of us, in reality, we so overreact. We react to things because we understand the impact of it on others. But when we step back and look at our life and live, it hasn't impacted us at the same scale. But sometimes we can have consumed our life and living in a way that we are not able to move forward. And I say that's just as dangerous, this empathy, and you want to support folks. But if you're not giving back into the world, which you have to give and that which the world needs, particularly in moments like this, then you're doubly robbing, because not only has the event and condition taken away, but now, though you have resources, though you have time and talent and gift and you aren't giving what you could to the space that could help further heal and move people beyond their pause moment. And so, I ask folks to say, what do you know to be true about everything, right? In this moment, sort of a Byron Katie. What is true? Is it true? How do you know it to be true? If you don't know the reference, look up Byron Katie. Great book. What do you know to be true about everything, right? Sometimes we're reacting to stuff in these moments and we're reacting. I say to people, hold on. Is it true? Do you know that to be true? I have to question myself, right? Especially with social media, especially with lots of texting now, voice notes and intent and intention and email. That's a lot of it. Oh my goodness, you can get yourself lost. Hold on. what do I know to be true about this moment, this experience? What do I know to be true about myself also? So important, because all of this mostly start with yourself. We got to watch and wait for ourselves, right? So what do you know? What do you actually know to be true? And then to reflect on what has been heard and or seen thus far, because that in the reflection is where we start to get to the growth. When we're just running from thing to thing, okay, pause. I've been there. Ooh, pause, new job. Okay, boom, run out the door. Run yourself ragged. Oh, same cycle. Okay, pause. All right. Some people, new relationship to relationship. Ooh, cycle, cycle, cycle. Right? So if we don't embrace the power of the pause and go through some reflection, such as, what was the glitch or distortion? What and or who has become a distraction? What is it time to let go of? What is it time to begin to do new, right? What are we uncertain about? What are we unclear about? We end up in this pause, start, pause, cycle, start, pause, cycle, start, pause, cycle. And what I've discovered is when you end up living in a start, pause cycle, well, the world around you will just press stop. It'll just press stop. Stop, 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 stop. We're not sure where that's going. Stop. And I know a lot of people, I've been in these temporary moments where, what is going on? What is going on? I can't get a job. What is going on? What is going on? Well, some of it's because you have not taken the time, or our conditions around us haven't given us the bandwidth to where we feel that we could do it, to actually reflect so that then we can grow. And so I want to go back into a couple scripture references in relation to some of this and how we often sort of why we end up in pause moments. And one of them was referencing to, that we often play old tapes, right? We often get stuck in the cycle of old tapes. And some of that too is, I came, when I referenced the scripture, Luke 5:36-39, and reading that recently and studying the book of Luke, a theme popped up in my head was, why do you keep trying to put your new man in old man dressing? This is for me. Why do you keep, Jeffrey DeShawn, why do you keep trying to put your new man in old man dressing? This is something that we do, right? Comfort, familiarity, avoidance of discomfort and change. And the scripture in Luke 5:36-39, and this is where Jesus is speaking through a parable. And he says, no man putteth a piece of a new garment upon an old, if otherwise, then both the new maketh a rent. And this is from the King James. And the piece that was taken out of the new agreeth not with the old. That's 5:36. No man putteth a piece of a new garment upon an old, if otherwise, then both the new maketh a rent, and the piece that was taken out of the new agreeth not with the old. Verse 37. And no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. Very often, if we have embraced the pause, or just because of the pause, allowed ourselves to reflect, because sometimes when you find yourself in the pause, you can't help it. You just be sitting and you start to see your children doing things. It's like, okay, I need to deal with that. You start seeing yourself as the people. Oh Lord, I had a case of wine stored up that normally lasts me 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, and I went through that in like 3 weeks. You reflect on that, right? Sometimes the pause will force reflection on you. Ooh, I'm just spending too much time. The screen, the screen time thing that calculates how much screen time comes up. And it's like, you've spent, 18 hours of screen time today. Oh, that's too much. What am I doing? Too much screen time, right? And so very often it forces reflection. And through that forced reflection, we can end up growing, right? We can start doing new behaviors, new thinking. Oh, okay, I need to spend more time with these kids because they do too much on the screen time, on the devices, and they doing too much other behavior, language, or the game, shoot, whatever. I need to spend some time. So we made a decision. I need to change or do something. Oh, you know what? If I have a glass of wine, it's just going to be one a night, two no more, right? Stretch it out, right? The pause can force growth on us. But what can happen if we don't take the time to actually reflect upon that growth and make it be intentional beyond the crisis, emergency, forced moment? we will go back to old behaviors, right? We will start playing old tapes. And oftentimes when you have made growth within yourself, right, and you try to go back to the old, there's a misalignment, right? It won't fit. In Luke 5:37, it says, and no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish, right? There's a misalignment very often. We've been giving time to our children. Our children are used to going to school and sitting, being in proximity to us, closer in proximity in the same space, whether they're next to us, whether they're upstairs in proximity. And now I'm sending them back to school and they don't want to go. And so now I'm getting calls that I never got called before from daycare because, your child is having tantrums and tantrums, right? Or you're trying to work and your child is now constantly interrupting you when before your child would be in the video game, in the book with friends, whatever, never bothering you. Well, now you're trying to go back to your old man and prioritize what you used to prioritize. Oh, I go to the gym every day. Now I can go back to the gym. Your kid is like, well, hold on, we were doing gym outside. And now your kid is acting up. Or you're trying to put your new condition, new ways into old man thinking, and you're going to run up against disruption. You're going to run up against misalignment every time. That goes the same with, some folks who are maybe thinking, oh, the space that I live in is too small and too cramped. And, I either can't do anything about it now, or I'm choosing not to do anything about it. And, well, you're still running up against sort of crossing over each other, in the house and the home because, well, you recognize that this isn't conducive and you need more space, or you need to do something different. But the environment, the space has not changed, right? Sometimes you may have changed behaviors, right? You may have changed behaviors. And now you're not eating a certain way. You're now eating healthier. Maybe you're not eating meat. I went through a period where, I'm not eating pork or beef or those kinds of things. Well, it's kind of difficult, but if you're still trying to socialize maybe with friends and family who want to go to the barbecue spot, they're going to the barbecue spot. It's like, okay, it's either you go and you find something you can't eat, or you really don't want to eat, or you go and just don't eat, right? Or you don't go, and then it's kind of like now you're missing out on that interaction because now, that's a, example, but because you don't eat, right? So, and then now there's discomfort, and then maybe, oh, you don't come around, you don't do this, you do that. Well, some of my behaviors have changed. Some of my interests have changed. I know folks that have gotten back into reading and their art. And so now they want to spend more time, in reading and, they want to spend more time working on their art. And so they're not available maybe to run, to go and do some of the things that they used to do externally with folks, because now I'm focusing in on something else. And that can sometimes, those relationships can sometimes have a misalignment when you're still trying to put sort of new thinking, new ways into old environments, old settings, right? So that whole new wine into old bottles. And that's hard. It's very hard. It can be very hard. But this is part of the sort of the watch, wait, grow, and pray. Because if we wait and be still and allow ourselves to observe ourselves and to learn ourselves, and then take the growth steps, and I'm going to share it. We're going to share some actual growth action steps. Then we will actually be able to step out with more clarity on why we're doing what we're doing, where, right, the vision of where we want to go, what we want to achieve for what we're doing, right, and the how, which is a lot I work with people a lot on in coaching, right? But one of the most difficult things, and I sort of talked about friends and relationships, can be, in Luke 5:38-39, it says, but new wine must be put in new bottles, and both are preserved, right? So new wine, new bottles, it's preserved, right? You got newness, new and new, preserved, right? But the biggest struggle for me, and I think many, is this 39, Luke 5:39, no man also having drunk old wine straightway desireth new. No man also having drunk old wine straightway desireth new. For he saith the old is better. The old is better. The old you was better. The old you was funner. The old you came around more. The old you, your boss might say, well, before when we were in the office, you would work, you had no problem staying extra an hour, 2 hours. But now that you're home, I can't even get you extra 30 minutes. Well, because the old you was better. The old you was more accessible to me. The old you did what I wanted you to do. Or you did what I do. And that can be hard, because in that there's often the fear of loss again, particularly in a moment like this where many have lost so much and have lost so many souls around them. It's like, I'm not trying to lose another friend. I'm not trying to lose another family member, you know? And so people can get stuck in sort of a cycle, again, of pause, because you decide not to do the new because you're afraid of losing the old. Well, but if you take actually the opportunity to truly reflect and to grow, you might learn that you've already stepped out and beyond the old, right? That you've already stepped out and beyond the old. And we often can end sort of up, back in these cycles, because, and it's not also necessarily because you haven't prepared yourself to step forward, that you're not necessarily ready. But you may not have gotten to the place of acknowledgement and acceptance that you've made a new way for yourself, that you are ready for a new device, that you're ready for a new radio, computer, phone, a tablet, that a new player in your play, right? That you are ready for a new launching pad, that it is actually time to move to the city that you want to move to, that it's actually time to step out. You are ready to step out there and launch the business, that you are ready to step out there and go and apply for the job in the setting that you actually want. You want to go from direct service to administration. I want to be a manager, supervisor. Well, that you are actually ready, but you haven't taken and embrace the pause to actually reflect yourself so you can see it, recognize it, and then begin to prepare yourself to grow, so that you are so you're not only just you're ready, but you're aware and confident. So sometimes we aren't aware because we haven't embraced the pause to watch, the wait, and allow ourselves to grow, to know that we are actually ready. That you can press play again and it's going to play all the way through. Sometimes it's been a video that glitched and it glitched a couple times, enough times that I was just like, you know what? And somebody said, did you finish watching it? I never did. I never went back and watched that thing because it was just glitching too much. Well, did you try it on a different device? Did you shut down the old device and reboot it? Did you do a McAfee virus scan analysis before you just wrote it off? To know that it was still ready to play, but just the glitch or distortion had to be acknowledged and responded to appropriately. But very often we don't respond to the glitch or distortions in our lives appropriately because we don't actually take the time to reflect in the moment on the pause because of the fear of what we might find. But here's the thing about getting over that fear. Once you get over the fear of reflecting what you might find, you can create anything. You can create anything. If this moment in COVID has taught us anything can be created. It seemed like overnight at a certain point when they realized they needed to make more money, all of a sudden, you can work from home. We can educate these kids at home, all kinds of online curriculum accessible for free. You're getting before it was like, my child, we don't have stable internet. I can't afford it. Comcast is too expensive. So my child's homework, these audiovisual things you have to do, can't do it. All of a sudden, we'll get you internet at home for your kids to do the education. We'll send you a hotspot. You need a phone? It can be done, but we have to take the pause. We have to reflect. We have to acknowledge and then accept that something new, some change has to happen. Something new has to be created. It's like trying to use the analogy. It's like trying to plant flowers in a stone yard, right? You decided you want to plant flowers, but your whole back, might be a little dirt, might be like a foot of dirt. Maybe half of that. And you decide to, I'm gonna plant some flowers. And you wonder why these flowers, they look pretty, maybe even last a week. They might even make it a week, a couple of weeks. They all just die eventually. Well, you haven't you wouldn't do the extra work to get the shovel and dig a little deeper because you got to get them stones out, or to recognize, to know there is stone underneath that, half a foot of dirt. And then look around for another plot of land that's actually conducive to growing plants, So sometimes we find ourselves trying to go flowers in a stone yard, and that's not going to work. It's not going to work, And so it's important, as I've been saying, to accept the pause moment so that we can reflect on ourselves, so that then we can observe, grow. In coaching, there's something called the grow model, the growth model, right? And I'm gonna use a grow analogy, GROW, for today's talk, but you can check out the grow and growth and models out there. And it's really sort of almost a goal setting, sort of problem solving, what to do sort of framework to help people sort of reflect and understand. And using the grow model of sort of goal, reaction, options, and will, right? You're going to ask yourself around a goal, what do you want? Right? Once you've done all this observation and recognition of what's clear out and real and what's happening around you, why there's been a glitch or distortion, what might have been or who might have been a distraction. What do you want? What's the goal from here? Before you jump out there, what is the goal? Before you jump up to keep with the Joneses, right? What do you want? What is the goal? Reaction. Where are you now? What are you reacting to? Because it's so important too. Sometimes we're reacting to our emotions, but we don't take the step to react. And I've been a victim of this. Woo, Lord, we know. What am I actually reacting to? What am I actually having a problem with in this moment? What am I actually missing? What am I actually having this response to that I no longer have access to? There have been folks who I just been acting crazy. I just been irritable. And it actually took them a moment to realize, oh, I haven't been to the gym in months. I used to go to the gym at least 2-3 times a week. And that was my let off. Because of the, immediate quarantine, I stopped running. And we eat and everything. Now I'm not happy with my body and I haven't been running. And you know what? That running once a week, that helped me be less reactive. So where are you now? What are you reacting to? And why? I always add the why. And then in the grow model, goal, reaction, what do you want? Goal, where are you now? Reaction, options. What could you do? Because here's the thing. You may not feel like there are options, but there's always options. There's always some option around you. And it's not just, options aren't about just money and resources, right? There are options to do. There's so much within our own control of doing, and the vessel that we are, this human being vessel that we are, the spirit being vessel that I am. Like, there's so many options. So what can you do? You may not be able to go out there and buy the food truck. You may not be able to run out there today and get the loan to open the business. You may not be able to put the house on the market today, but what can you do to prepare while you watch, wait, and grow? And then in this model of grow, goal, reaction, options, and will, goal being what do you want, reaction being where are you now, recognizing what are you reacting to, clear out and real, what's happening, options being what could you do, what's available to you, will, what will you do? There's a lot of things we will make a lot of observations, and we will put the high end version of our goal map, our strategy map, our next steps for the next month, the week on paper, but then it's not aligned with our actual will, what we're willing to do, because the gold platinum model of what we want to do, right? What we want, our goal, might require us to get up at 4 a.m. every morning or 6 a.m. Well, might not be able to do that. Or you might not want to do that. It might require that you spend at least 2 to 3 hours a night with your children reading or playing. Well, you might not want to do that. It might require that you give up, some time with the boys, the fellas, the girls, and the gals to spend with your spouse or your partner. And you might not want to do that. So what will you do? Be clear out and real and honest, because a lot of people end up back in this sort of pause cycle, start, pause, because there's a misalignment with their vision and ideas and their actual will. What will you actually do? Because in the acknowledging and recognizing what you will actually do, that's when the growth happens. That's when the growth happens. When heart and head align, we hear it. Mother Ayanna Van Zant says it all the time, that misalignment between heart and head, lose the confusion. And then you get into the will. Like, what are you willing to actually do in these moments? What are you willing to actually do. And that's so important too, because sometimes, in the rushing out of the pause and the rushing to keep up, we jump out and you end up, borrowing and stealing, hopefully not stealing, borrowing and stealing to get ahead. And I see the Instagram is about to cut me off. If you're on Instagram, I'm still live streaming on Facebook, but it's going to cut me off in a minute, in 2 minutes. And so here's where we grow. So for Instagram, I'm going to fast forward from grow. We go to pray. Why do we pray? Why do we pray? Well, we pray because prayer is a declaration of intention. However you pray. Some people don't pray through words. Some people pray through meditation. Some people pray through physical activity. Boy, running can be the best prayer and meditation and communion with God's source and spirit, physical activity, right? Some people need to get collective with others. Some people have planting their gardens, or in urban environments have a planter pot that you rent out. And so prayer is a declaration of intention. Prayer is an affirmation of self and commitments. Prayer serves as a personal accountability tool to ourselves, to God, to others. Prayer is a tool of collaborative creation because we can sync up and pray with others for our goals, for their goals. And I encourage people, pray, spend more time praying for others than yourself, because that energy will come back to you and you will grow faster. Now, Instagram is about to cut me off. I'm going to continue on Facebook, but embrace the power of the pause. Watch, wait, allow yourself to grow. And then why do you then pray? Because if you haven't watched, waited, and grown, you don't know what to pray for. You're just out here praying. Watch, wait, and grow. Let yourself grow, reflect, because then you know what to pray for. And in that, for Instagram, I'm going to say, all things are possible and nothing is out of reach. I'm Jeffrey DeShawn, the Inspired Muse. And for Instagram, that's been your Sunday Muse Moment. Watch, wait, grow, and pray. So Instagram is off. I'm still live on Facebook. So I actually want to go back here and talk a little bit more about growing. Because this is where the magic happens. We can watch and reflect, and that can even allow us to get further stuck, in a start, pause sort of cycle. But if we don't actually take steps to grow, right, to change, to turn all of that new knowledge and awareness of ourselves into action, we don't grow. And so it's so important, however you do, whatever tools you do, get a therapist, a counselor, a coach, inspiredmuse.com, jeffreydrichardson.com. We are available and working with folks. And I even been doing some, pay what you can. I do a lot of pro bono work out there too. But find a tool that works for you. Find a thought partner. Sometimes it's not your spouse or or the person you're dating. Sometimes it's not a sibling or a parent or even a best friend. Sometimes it might be the person in your walking group. Interesting enough, sometimes this might be the person that ends up on your commute every day on the train. But embrace and find the tools and the people that are going to help you really grow and reflect. This isn't a slight of shade of anything that was in your life, but you got to step out and take the risk to find that which fits and aligns for your life and living now. And that takes me to the scripture reference that I wanted to share about Genesis, because I think this is so important about the watching and the waiting and the path to growth. And I'm going Genesis 1:24 through 27. And this is talking about creation itself. For those of us who believe that there was an intentional source, for me, my God, who brought all of this into being in some way, shape, or form. I don't know, but I believe in the collective spirit. I believe in the God energy, and I believe in the collective God energy. So there was some intention about why this whole consciousness and earth and terrestrial experience exists. So, I stand firm in my belief of that. But Genesis 1:24 through 27. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. 24. 25. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. I'm gonna read that again because I get excited about 27. I'm gonna do a talk on that one day. Not today, but we'll talk about it. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And I point this out for a couple words. When we go back up to the creation of the living creatures, for let the earth bring forth the living creatures after his kind. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind. And God said, let us make man in our collective, our God energy, collective energy, our image, after our likeness. Well, part of the importance of the pause in these moments in our lives, and particularly any moment of crisis, collapse, and change, take the time and opportunity to discover what kind, what likeness, what image were you, are you, have you created yourself in? Because oftentimes I find that we don't take the time to know ourselves, and oftentimes it's life and living, growing up as a child in the care of adults, and then you go off into your young adult life, whether that's in an institutional setting for education or whether that's in a work community setting. You find an attachment to a bond of people, a collective, a group, that sort of frames you and shapes you and defines you. Athletics, team sports, law enforcement, military, whatever, the homemaker, whatever that is, right? We find ourselves in the likeness of external things and the likeness of things other outside of ourselves. But it can be until we bump up against something that doesn't fit, or we've been sort of smacked down because there was a misalignment with how we see ourselves and actually how we show up, or misalignment in responsibilities that we took on, but we did not have the skills, the talents, or the abilities developed, right? A misalignment in how we present ourselves, but we don't understand why in certain spaces we're not received, right? Well, oftentimes it's because we have not taken the time to reflect and understand what is the kind, the likeness, and the image that we are created in. We are all different, divinely, differently created, intentionally with purpose. That's why the conversations around bigotry, racism, homophobia, transphobia, all of this, hatred towards people of Asian descent, from the Asiatic world, like crazy to me. Look around this God-given world that so many people love to, hunt and take and consume from. It is diverse. It is diverse and representative of every kind and every likeness. And so be affirmed in the power that you have the divine rights given to you to take the time to understand the image and the likeness of your source. For me, God creator that created you. What part of your parents are you? You're not the whole, you're a mashup of them, right? So maybe, it might not be your biological parents, but those not raised by biological parents. Well, the folks that put ideas and thoughts and behaviors into you. So what have you taken on? And what part of that is actually in alignment with who you are today, how you see yourself today? Take the time to understand the likeness and the kind and the image of the person and the being that you have been brought into this world to be. Because in that, man, you know what I'm going to say? If you follow me, all things are possible and there is nothing out of reach. And here's the beauty. And when you come into a prayer place, however you pray, meditation, exercise, reflection, it's all meditation for me, and then that For me, prayer is meditation. You know, our thoughts are prayers. I started playing that song when I started to talk. Our thoughts are prayers. Our thoughts truly are prayers because this is our creative tool, right? We understand it in regards to business. We understand it. We got this. Oh, I decided to have a child, so I decided. So now we're getting pregnant as a family. We're conceiving, right? We understand it about things, but we don't understand it about our own life and living somehow. But when you take the time to understand the likeness that you are created in, the image and the kind that you are created after, and align that with who are you today? What is clear-eyed and present within you today? What do you want? What do you need? What do you desire? You know exactly what to pray for. You don't have to, you know, in this moment of COVID where you have those who go to houses of worship, you ain't got to wait till you can run up to see the bishop because you know what you need to pray for. You don't got to wait till you see your coach because you know now have clarity on what is an alignment for your life and living. So when you see your coach, this is what I want to do. Can you help me decide, you know, can you help me develop the skills, develop the steps to be able to execute on it? You don't have to wait for a friend, a parent, a spouse to tell you, what do you think? I hear so many people, you know, and I've been in a trap before in different parts of my life. Well, what do you think? You know, you got something you know you want to do, or you've reflected on a situation. You understand that, you know, oh, I want to date this person, or I want to be with this person, or you understand that, you know, I don't want to, you know, I want to change, but you may know things about yourself, but you still decide, what do you do? You know, what you think, what you think, what you think. Well, when you take the time to truly understand the likeness, the kind, the image of being, however you frame and see yourself, that you are, you know exactly what to pray for. You know exactly what to meditate on. You are primed and set and ready to grow because you know what you want. You have opened your eyes and your ears and your understanding to know where you actually are. What you've been reacting to and responding to around you, what around you has created the exact conditions and circumstance for your life and living, not just the broader. There's so much broader stuff that we react to, but where are you in your life and living? Because here's the thing about that. There's empathy and wanting to support all of the different problems and challenges in the world. But again, if you are spending so much time running out to a protest, I'm just gonna say it. Running out to a protest, you're spending so much time responding to the text messages and posting and reacting to every article that's posted on Facebook that you have not taken the time to understand who you are, your likeness, your kind, that you haven't taken the time to understand what's going on with your children and your house, to understand what's going on with your spouse, then all that is for naught. All of it's for naught, because if you're not putting energy back out into the world that's whole, well, it's fragmented in pieces and parts, and it's going to land in fragments and pieces and parts. And what's going to yield is going to be in fragments and pieces and parts. And most things that are common fragments and pieces and parts, well, they can only be used in fragments and pieces and parts. So you're never going to find wholeness. And so even in all that do-gooding that, I'm talking to myself on this, that we can do, we need to take the time and step back to recognize what is ours to do, what is beneficial for us to do, and out of what is beneficial for us to do, what from that can we share something positive into the world? Because I get on folks all the time. There's news, and then there's, news to confuse. And a lot of times we're sharing doom and gloom stories, the same stories over and over again. I want people to know. People know. It's there, especially now, all these tools, all these things. What you're doing when you're doing it repeatedly is the energy that you're putting out, even your intent is to inform, but the energy you're putting out is doom and gloom because you're just saddening people, you're depressing people, you're scaring people from interacting with other people. So we also have to be mindful and aware when we decide what will we do. As again, one of my leadership mentors and a very wise woman says, it's sometimes not just, the most important thing is what you do, but it's how you do it. Once you've decided what will you do, how will you do it? And how will you do it that is in alignment with the like and the kind of person and being that you are? Not the kind and like and being that Sally Sue is and Bobby Boo is, because Bobby Boo Bobby Boo may be made from a whole different stock of stuff. Bobby Boo may be able to go run 5 miles, eat 2 cheesesteaks, and then drink 3 pitchers of margarita. Now, if Jeffrey DeShawn tries today, I'm just be honest, to run 5 miles, I pray the Lord lets me finish it, but I darn sure ain't gonna be able to eat 2 cheesesteaks, and I darn sure ain't got no business drinking no margarita at all, because Jeffrey DeShawn will be laid down. So Jeffrey DeShawn can't do what Bobby Boo do. So we also, in the deciding how we're going to do what we do, we got to stop. Take information, because there's so much information being put out there. This is my model. This is my model. Do it as I do. Do as I do. Do as I did. Do as I did. Do as I did. Do as I did. I see it as a coach. Do as I did. This is how I got my $1 million. This is how I got my man. You know, this is how I got my house. Okay. Take the knowledge and then line it with who and what you are. But you could only do that if you have taken the time. Embrace the pause, watch, wait, allow yourself to grow by knowing the like and the kind of being in person and spirit that you are, right? Where you in alignment with where you are and the resources you have, meaning also human resources, who you with. Because if you around, if you around folks who not doing anything, if you're around folks who doom and gloom all the time, and you trying to do something other than doom and gloom, you trying to bring some light, love, and possibility, well, it's going to be a little hard because, you can't use those assets as they are. So you might need to you got to try to take the pause, try to change them assets, or you need to go get you some new assets, right? So but in order to do that, we have to have taken the time with ourselves, to know ourselves, our kind, our likeness, to understand ourselves and our environments. So then we can be clear about what we will do in alignment with what we should do, with what we want to do. And then we can be intentional about praying and declaring our intentions about what we want, what we need, what we will, and affirming that in our actions, in our behaviors, in our thinking. We've got to affirm it in our thinking. As we think, we do, we talk. And then we can engage others. There's so many times when, I've been in this space where we've engaged others and hadn't, done these steps, right? Hadn't gotten clarity on where we are or in relation to a goal or a project, or where we are in relation to ourselves. And then we engage others in something. People do this in relationships. I've done it. When you step in a relationship, it's exciting. You feel connected to the person and bonded. There's energy and excitement. But then you don't realize you got old baggage you haven't dealt with. And so now you engaged and collected in a collaborative creation of a relationship, but you brought woundedness and hurt and distrust because you haven't dealt with it. And so now you just passed on that to somebody else or vice versa, right? So it's so important, watch, wait, so that you can allow yourself to grow. And then once you start to observe and the growing happening, get intentional about the declarations that you're making for yourself in your life, the affirmations of commitment that you're making for yourself, to yourself and to others, being accountable to those declarations and affirmations. I mean, we can make a lot of, I do the Tuesday morning pep talks, make a lot of affirmation declarations, but then how are you being accountable to yourselves around the behavior, the changes, the thinking that needs to happen? And then also being intentional about the who and the what that you engage as collaborative tools, because just because a tool is present or just because a person is present does not mean that it is the right fit and alignment of the tool for you to do that which you desire to do, or to go where you desire to go. And in the end, rinse, wash, repeat as needed and required. As you know, we bless those of you blessed to continue to live. And I thank God that I've been blessed to continue to live coming up this year, 43 years. Got a long way to go. Long way to go. I know, elders. I got a long way to go, elders. I know. But I'm blessed to have arrived here. And I know there's going to be some times ahead where I still got to rinse, wash, and repeat. It's not a one-time deal. It's not a one-time deal, because this life is ever evolving and ever changing, and conditions and circumstances are going to always come that force a pause, or we may, like the little turtle, pop our head up, pop out our shell and decide, oh, yeah, we need to take a pause. Or the turtle might have been slow walking, so slow. Or sometimes you get a little fast baby turtle, just moving along. And it's like, whoop, pop the head out. Pop the head up. Oh, shoot, we need to take a pause and observe. Let me sit here for a while and see what's going on within myself and what's going on around me. So that can happen, and will happen throughout our lives. And so rinse, wash, repeat, as needed and required. And in doing that, across your lifespan, you know what I'm going to say? When you get into the habit and behavior of doing that, to embracing the pause when it comes. And it could be, the pause might be a day, might be half a day, might be a second. You might need to take a pause from talking to your spouse because you've gotten into a cycle of arguments or dissension. It's like, okay, something's wrong. I need to take a pause from talking to you. I need to reflect. Your job, it might be a consuming project. And you're going round. And you know what? I need to take a pause from this for a couple of days. Then we're going to come back to it once I have some clarity. Right? So it's all kinds of things. This isn't just about COVID-19, but this is more so related to COVID-19, this sort of false belief that there's a return. There's not a return. We're in a new way of living. There may be some familiar things that you get to continue to do that are going to be familiar to the way you do it or hadn't changed. But the conditions and circumstances around us have created such an environment that nothing will be the same again. And so if anybody is telling you, go back, same, take it, filter, and look at it in alignment with what you know to be true. I mean, the fact that we have COVID, the fact that we have COVID vaccine, the fact that we're going to have COVID boots and everything to come, never the same again, right? So filter, folks, I'm back, same. Well, filter. And then look at that thing in alignment to what you know to be true and look at it in alignment with what do you know to be true about yourself, who and what you are, what likeness are you living your life under that you've been created under? What kind of person are you? Not everybody's the same kind of person, right? And then from there, you get to grow, you get to flourish. And your prayer, for those who leverage the power of prayer, your prayer becomes a tool, not just of getting over pain, right? Because oftentimes pray, oh, Lord, I need a job, I need money. Lord, I'm sick. Lord, don't let mama die. Lord, right? But your prayer can become this tool of affirmation, your tool of creation. That's intentional, that's thought forward, spirit-filled and inspired. And in that, you know what I'm going to say? All things are possible and nothing is out of reach.